The jury is not out on Boston. The Boston Celtics are really, really freaking good. They just kicked the crap out of the Knicks in their season opener. They go 29 for 61 from three-point range in that game, Rachel. And that's 47.5%, which would have been significantly higher if they didn't miss their last 13 threes as they had this cartoonish pursuit. This cartoonish pursuit of who was it? Was it Kevin Harlan calling that game? When he's like, will this be the record? Will this be the record? He said it over and over and over again.
By the way, Kevin Harlan is a national treasure. And
national treasure.
Everybody recognizes that the better.
He did like Hauser and Pritchard and Jordan Walsh. Like, we're in California, where there is no in-game gambling. But I was like, if I was in Massachusetts, I would have been like, can I live bet who is going to make this last three-pointer right now? Because everyone out there was trying at some point. Couldn't do it, so they settled for the tie for the most threes made. Like, 61 threes is a lot. But Rachel, this is not an aberration with this team. The first preseason game they played in Abu Dhabi, they jacked up 60 against the Denver Nuggets. This is Joe Mazzulla ball. Like, the Houston Rockets hold the record during those two D'Antoni years of most threes in a season. I think it's like 45-ish threes per game for a season. I think the Celtics going to blow by that. I think they're going to average 50 this year because they've got this, D'Antoni was 7 seconds or less. The Celtics aren't really that. They're like, make a play in a few seconds. Like, just do something in a few seconds. And when you have the firepower of Tatum with a very much a changed shot. Like, him and his trainer, Drew Hanlon, went to the lab on that shot. He got better with that. Brown, who is better. Holiday, still the same guy. Derek White, still the same guy. I mean, they're going to put up numbers this year because they're going to run you from that three-point line. If you can't keep up with them, I don't know. What did you take away from watching the defending champs?
Yeah, I mean, it's funny. Look, I'm hopeful for a lot of competition in the top four in the East. It would be great if New York, we got to see them sort of all these moves really pay off. I have wanted to see Joel Embiid and Paul George play together for a long time. I just think that they fit together so well, and Maxey fits in right with them. And it's fun to see a basketball team where everyone's role is really maximized. I still haven't seen it, though, because of injury issues. So that is obviously going to be their danger point. Milwaukee, we just don't know. I mean, it obviously didn't quite work out the way they wanted last season. That happened to Minnesota 2 seasons ago, and then they come out like gangbusters, and we saw they reached the Western Conference Finals last year. So we'll have to see what happens with the Bucks. But the Celtics are so far and away ahead of them. I do think it's going to be hard to have sort of that will they or won't they, who's going to get the top seed thing that I think people were hoping for with some of the Knicks and Sixers improvements, because they're so good. That 5-out style, the fact that they've returned everyone, they've been through it now, they've gotten over whatever psychological hump they had about being in the finals and not pushing through and all of that. They even still have a little bit of a chip on their shoulder, which is unusual for a championship team. But Jason Tatum heard everything everyone said about him this summer. Jaylen Brown, certainly with the whole I didn't make the Olympic team controversy. So these are guys who are motivated in a way we don't normally see with defending champions as well. And with the three ball, I mean, look, we've had this discussion a lot, right? How much is too much? Can this win? Is this going to win? Steph Curry, when it was just sort of more natural and the Warriors were jacking up threes all over the place because that was maximizing their particular talents. They weren't going for, oh my God, we have to hit threes. It was just like, look at what these guys are doing. And then we've got Mike D'Antoni, who is trying to maximize that sort of, as you said, a version of the 7 seconds or less, but that's less about calculating the number of threes per se and more about playing a certain style. Joe Mazzulla is basically taking this to its mathematical ending point. How many can every shot we take be a three? Because honestly, if you can make a high percentage of those, that's how you're going to win every single basketball game you play. So he is actually trying to figure out how to do that, I believe. And I think we're going to see an interesting iteration of that this season because there's going to be a little bit of the Celtics just playing with their food, right? I mean, they're going to be so much better than a lot of the teams they play that the same way we saw against the Knicks on opening night. This is a team that a lot of people thought would challenge them for the top seed in the East. This was not Portland. This is not a team going to the bottom. The team that we thought was going to be a challenge to them, they spent the last section of the game, I don't want to use this language on your podcast, but,
okay.
Taking a round and seeing if they could break a record, right? So I just think that I think that we're going to see some interesting things this season. And I think that they will, of course, be challenged. I'm not saying that they're going to glide through to a title, but I think they will be the heavy favorite. And I'm interested to see how far Joe Mazzulla can push the experiment I like all of those guys. I think that they have earned what they've gotten, and I'm excited to see them go forward.
They put those numbers on the Knicks, a top 10 defensive team last year that added an elite wing in Mikal Bridges that I thought going into this season had a pretty good shot of finishing with the best record in the Eastern Conference, because maybe the Celtics took the first, mostly because I thought the Celtics might cruise in the first half of the season, Porzingis being out, Horford not playing back-to-backs. There were just opportunities for the Celtics to lose some regular season games in the same way we've seen like Denver do it after their championship run. Like there's a hangover there. You know, Tatum, White, Holiday playing in the Olympics. Like there were a lot of reasons to believe that a team like New York might be more motivated with Tibbs to win all these regular season games. I'm off that train. One game in, I'm completely off that train. Like they did this without Porzingis. You got Xavier Tillman out there jacking up threes from the corner. Like they're all in on this brand of basketball, and everybody seems completely comfortable with their roles on this team. Like Tatum, like he definitely does have some of that, you know, kind of fuck you to him right now. Like to everybody out there that said you can't shoot, you know, Brown's, you know, now the new guy on this team,
right?
You know, all that stuff. Like, and look, you watch his shot, and I was texting with some people in the organization. I'm like, how substantial are these changes? And they're like, they're pretty substantial. Like he definitely tweaked his shot in a real way this summer, and you can see more arc on it. You can see more confidence in his shot. Like, he's not going to shoot, 8 for 10 from 3 every game. But if he's like 3 for 7, 3 for 6, 4 for 7, whatever it is, he's going to average like 30, and he's going to put himself right there in the MVP conversation. And look, we didn't even talk about their defense. They're still a really friggin' good defensive team and will be better when Porzingis gets back into the lineup. But look, a scout told me this, or an assistant coach told me this before the season. He's like, Celtics going to have to beat themselves. Whether it's an injury or they screw up somehow, Celtics going to have to beat themselves. And right now, I don't really see how that's going to happen. I'll tell you what, like we thought the dynasty era was kind of over, and look, maybe it is, but if the Celtics win it this year, and we're fast forwarding a lot right now doing that, but if the Celtics win it this year, whoever buys the team is going to be under enormous pressure to keep it together, right? Like you can't buy a 2-time champion and trade Derek White and Drew Holiday to save money. Like you can't do it. You've got to re-sign Al Horford if he wants to play. Now Al could probably play till he's 45. Like he's got the fountain of youth. They could be a 2-time, 3-time champion. I think is probably the ceiling, because eventually you start paying too many tax penalties. But they've got a chance to build one of those Warriors type dynasties, because they've got a long window here to win this thing.
Yeah, I completely agree. And look, at also what your point about how is the team going to get managed under potentially new ownership is really the key, I think. I'm not, first of all, I'm like writing a check that they're going to win the next 2 just if they do stay together, because things happen in the NBA. People ascend, people descend, motivations change, injuries happen. However, I think the biggest factor is going to be how the front office manages the team, because that's frankly what I saw in Denver these past couple of years. Denver won that title. The way Jamal Murray was contributing, what Nikola Jokic is, and the way he played is just so astounding. I mean, I think we still, as much credit as he's gotten in MVPs as he's won, I don't think that there's quite been the language to describe the way he is on a basketball court, what he does that he's not supposed to be able to do at that size, and the vision and sort of court sense that he has. And I sat there after that title sitting in that arena, and I, obviously it could be recency bias, but I was like, man, I don't see anyone beating these guys for a while. I mean, they just have everything, right? Nikola Jokic is so good. And then they started dismantling the team right away that summer and have only done more of that since. So I don't get that. I don't ever understand when ownership does that. We've seen it time and time again. I mean, LeBron James very famously, when with those Miami Heat teams, when Mike Miller got sold off for money, basically, that was the thing that basically he thought destroyed all of team chemistry, and that they didn't win the next year because of, any tinker to the locker room, any little bit of contribution on the court that's taken away, I think, unless you're really making a move for the better and you're acquiring and bringing someone else in, I wouldn't mess up a championship team. I would just keep them and pay the money and see what happens, because you're going to pay money the entire time you own. You're going to try to make plays. You're going to try to overpay certain guys. Things are going to go wrong. Owning an NBA team is very lucrative when you sell it, but to own it can be very expensive. And I'd rather have it be expensive when I have the chance of a title, because we see it get very expensive for teams that don't even have a shot at the title. And when you actually have a guy like Nikola Jokic and you have a roster that has won the title, keep it. And that is what the Boston Celtics are doing. I mean, I remember seconds after they won that title this past summer, I happened to be right near Wick Grosbeck, and we were talking to him, and I had him on camera doing the thing, and back and
Mm-hmm.
forth. What do you think? And what about this moment? And he just said, "Rachel," he said into the microphone, "We're keeping the whole team together, every single guy. We're paying the whole team." And I said, "You know what that tax bracket's going to put you in?" He goes, "We are absolutely bringing everybody back. We're doing it." And it's the euphoria of the moment, but he kept his word. And I just think with the Celtics, that's going to be a huge point of whether we see another dynasty birth here.
Yeah, I do think, and this is more educated speculation, that whoever buys the team, it's going to play at the TD Garden for a while, but I don't think it's going to stay at the TD Garden. I think it's going to
Really?
I do think it's going to be a buy the team and, hey, we're going to build a new stadium somewhere else. Now that's going to take time, of course. Like,
right.
You don't have it. Like, there is, people say there's not room to do it in Boston. That's bullshit. There is right. room to do it in certain areas, the Seaport. You go to the old Suffolk Downs area. You could even take it outside of the city proper if you really wanted to. There's that casino in Everett. You could do something around there. But I do think that's having the opportunity, because the Celtics can't make money off that building. Like, it's their tenants in that building, and that costs them something overall.
Sure.
So I think that's going to help them keep the money flowing for at least the next couple of years. That a new owner will have an eye towards a real estate investment to go along with this team.